What if the woman who brought Elvis Presley joy in his final days was also at the center of whispers that she could have been his undoing? Imagine the king of rock and roll, larger than life, pouring his heart into a romance that some believed was draining the very essence of who he was. This is the untold story of Elvis, Ginger Alden, and a love so intense it left his closest friends deeply worried. One confidant, who saw it all unfold, revealed something so shocking it might just change the way you see Elvis' final chapter forever. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, was more than just a musical icon. He was a cultural phenomenon. With his electrifying voice, magnetic charm, and an undeniable stage presence, Elvis captivated the hearts of millions worldwide. Yet behind the glittering lights and roaring crowds, his life was far from the fairy tale many imagined. By the time the world entered the late 1970s, Elvis was grappling with a whirlwind of challenges, fading health, mounting pressures, and a relentless need to maintain his legendary status. As his final days approached, a new chapter in his life began, one filled with both hope and heartbreak. In the last year of his life, Elvis found himself entangled in a romance that sparked both admiration and alarm among those closest to him. This relationship, intense and all-encompassing, seemed to breathe new life into the star, rekindling a spark that many feared had long been extinguished. Yet, as the romance blossomed, whispers of concern began to grow louder. Could this newfound connection, so bright on the surface, be hiding darker undertones? Those closest to Elvis, who had seen the toll fame and personal struggles had taken on him, were left questioning the true impact of this love story. At the heart of this whirlwind romance was Ginger Alden, a woman whose presence seemed to ignite both passion and unease. Elvis, captivated by her beauty and independence, poured himself into the relationship, lavishing her with extravagant gifts and unyielding devotion. But within the inner circle, those who knew Elvis better than most, doubts began to stir. Was this relationship a source of revival or a path to ruin? The concerns of his closest friends and confidants painted a picture far more complex than the public ever saw, leaving questions that still linger today. Elvis Presley's introduction to Ginger Alden was nothing short of a classic love story, at least on the surface. Their meeting was marked by a spark that quickly ignited into a whirlwind romance. Elvis, ever the showman, lavished Ginger with attention that could make anyone feel like royalty. From extravagant gifts that included sparkling jewelry to private flights and luxurious trips, he spared no expense to make her feel cherished. Elvis didn't just stop at spoiling Ginger. He extended his generosity to her family, flying them out when she grew homesick. To many, it seemed like a fairy tale romance, one where Elvis had finally found someone who made him feel alive again. This newfound love brought a noticeable change in Elvis, lifting him out of what many feared was a permanent slump. Those closest to him couldn't help but notice the spring in his step, the renewed energy in his voice, and a sparkle in his eyes that seemed to have dimmed in recent years. Even his performances reflected this emotional high. The king was once again captivating audiences in a way that felt reminiscent of his earlier days. Elvis himself openly credited Ginger for this transformation, speaking of how her presence in his life had invigorated him. It seemed, at least for a fleeting moment, that this relationship was the miracle everyone had hoped for. But not everyone shared Elvis's optimism. Larry Geller, a close confidant and spiritual guide, saw a different side of the story. He watched as Elvis threw himself into this relationship with a fervor that bordered on desperation. While the emotional high was undeniable, Geller couldn't shake the feeling that it was built on shaky ground. In his private diary, Geller recorded his concerns, questioning just how long this newfound happiness could sustain Elvis amidst the pressures and habits that already weighed heavily on him. To Geller, this wasn't just another romance. It was a delicate balancing act, one that felt perilously close to collapse. Larry Geller, one of Elvis's most trusted confidants, observed the unfolding relationship with a mix of fascination and unease. In his diary, Geller painted a vivid picture of Elvis's relentless efforts to keep up with Ginger Alden, a woman whose youth and independence seemed to demand more energy than Elvis could afford. Geller noted how Elvis, already battling the physical toll of his lifestyle, was pushing himself to extremes in a desperate bid to maintain the relationship. In one poignant entry, Geller described how Elvis's constant striving for Ginger's love and attention was running him ragged, leaving those who truly cared for him questioning whether this romance was more of a burden than a blessing. These concerns were not confined to Geller alone. Others in Elvis's close-knit entourage began to voice their own doubts about Ginger Alden's role in the king's life. Some aides quietly speculated that her motives were tied more to his fame and fortune than to genuine affection. Their whispers painted a picture of a woman who, while captivating, might not have had Elvis's best interests at heart. Such sentiments grew louder as the relationship deepened, with members of the inner circle feeling helpless as they watched Elvis pour himself into a love that seemed, at times, unreciprocated. The tension among his trusted confidants hinted at a storm brewing just beneath the surface of this glamorous romance. Even Elvis's cousin, Billy Smith, felt compelled to intervene, offering candid advice that others in the entourage might have hesitated to voice. During a private conversation, Billy suggested that Elvis consider dating someone closer to his own age, someone who might better understand the complexities of his life. Elvis, known for his fiery personality, was quick to dismiss the suggestion with a cutting remark. "What the hell could a 42-year-old woman do for me?" His sharp retort revealed not only his resistance to criticism, but also his determination to hold on to the relationship at all costs, regardless of the warnings from those who cared for him most. Behind the scenes, the cracks in their seemingly perfect romance began to show. Disagreements and fights between Elvis and Ginger became more frequent and intense, often centered around her reluctance to fully immerse herself in his world. Elvis, desperate to keep her by his side, grew increasingly frustrated when she refused to join him on tour or embrace the demands of his life. These fiery arguments, fueled by unmet expectations and clashing personalities, left a trail of emotional scars that those closest to Elvis couldn't ignore. As the relationship spiraled into a cycle of passion and conflict, the question lingered: was this love story destined to save him or destroy him? The proposal was as sudden as it was extravagant, a moment straight out of a Hollywood romance, or so it seemed. Elvis, known for his grand gestures, presented Ginger Alden with a diamond so dazzling it could rival the sparkle of his own fame. The stone, taken from his cherished TCB ring, was a symbol of his commitment and his signature motto, "Taking care of business." The proposal happened in an unexpected setting, his bathroom, a private sanctuary where Elvis often felt most at ease. Yet, for all its grandeur, the moment left many wondering, was this a declaration of eternal love, or a desperate attempt to solidify a relationship that seemed to be teetering on the edge? Nancy Rooks, a longtime Graceland maid who had seen Elvis's life up close, offered a different perspective. She questioned the authenticity of the proposal, describing it as a gesture that felt more fleeting than heartfelt. Was the proposal real, or was it just Elvis's way of trying to hold on to something he knew was slipping away? Rooks reflected in her writings. Her insights hinted at an underlying tension, one where Elvis's desire to control and shape the relationship clashed with the reality of Ginger's youth and growing independence. To Rooks, it seemed unlikely that Elvis truly envisioned walking down the aisle with Ginger, especially as their relationship grew more strained. The significant age gap between Elvis and Ginger added another layer of complexity to their dynamic. At 42, Elvis was a man with a lifetime of experiences, battling personal demons and the pressures of fame. Ginger, in contrast, was young, independent, and unyielding in her sense of self. This disparity often led to clashes, with Elvis yearning for someone who could care for him in a way that Ginger never seemed willing, or able to do. As time went on, doubts began to overshadow the initial excitement of the proposal. Those who knew the couple best started to wonder if their differences were simply too great to overcome, leaving the future of their relationship shrouded in uncertainty. Larry Geller's conclusion was as devastating as it was unflinchingly honest. From his vantage point, someone who had witnessed both the highs and lows of Elvis Presley's tumultuous life, Geller believed the king's relentless pursuit of Ginger Alden's love and approval was taking a dangerous toll. In his words, Elvis was killing himself, striving for her love and attention. It wasn't just the emotional strain of the relationship, it was the lengths to which Elvis went to prove himself, to keep up with someone who seemed to demand more than he could give. For Geller, this was not the story of a man uplifted by love, but of one consumed by it, a tragic spiral that those closest to him could only watch in helpless agony. The pressures of the relationship didn't exist in isolation. They collided with the other forces already weighing heavily on Elvis. His grueling schedule, the physical toll of his performances, and his reliance on prescription drugs created a volatile cocktail of stress and exhaustion. The constant push to maintain his legendary status, paired with the emotional turbulence of his romance with Ginger, may have exacerbated his declining health. Those who cared for him could see the cracks forming, but Elvis seemed blind to the consequences of his actions, driven by a need to hold on to something that appeared to be slipping through his fingers. In the end, the question remains, was it love, or was it a desperate quest for validation that hastened the king's tragic downfall? Elvis Presley's story came to a heartbreaking end before his marriage to Ginger Alden could ever take place, leaving behind a legacy shrouded in both glory and tragedy. Their whirlwind romance, filled with passion and conflict, continues to spark debate and intrigue. Was this love story destined to falter from the very beginning, or was it the king's final, desperate attempt to find a sliver of happiness amidst the chaos of his life? The answers remain elusive, but one thing is certain. This chapter of Elvis's life is as complex and captivating as the man himself. What do you think? Was this romance a beacon of hope in Elvis's final days, or did it contribute to the challenges he was already facing? We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more untold stories of the king, and share it with fellow Elvis fans to keep the conversation alive. Together, let's explore the life, love, and legacy of the one and only Elvis Presley.